Good afternoon, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. This is Rich again for your afternoon blog for Thursday, July 10th, 2014, around 4:30 p.m. in Billerica, Massachusetts. Another nice sunny day. The humidity's becoming a little lower, and that's good. We're going to have nice summer weather with low humidity for the next few days, and the heat and humidity return next week. But I hear after that a change of the weather pattern. It's going to have cooler than normal temperatures for this time of year, which will be in the low to mid 70s, I hear. But it's better than rain and snow and sleet and ice. One little tidbit before my subject of this video blog is it's official. Rosie O'Donnell's returning to be on The View. This is the first time in 7.5 years Rosie O'Donnell's going to be on The View. She's going to be with Whoopi Goldberg starting in September. I wonder how long that will last. Whoopi Goldberg and Rosie O'Donnell co-hosting a show. I have a funny feeling it's not going to last too long. I bet you by Christmas time, either Whoopi probably would announce she's quitting as well. I think, in my opinion, The View is on its last legs, and I would not be surprised if this upcoming season's the final season of The View, because Barbara Walters has retired, and they've been changing so many cast members recently, so this could be the end of the line for The View. Okay? So my next subject, this is going to be like a throwback Thursday thing, and we're going to go back in time about 20 years about a heel turn that happened in the WWE with Mr. Bob Backlund. A little bit of background on Bob Backlund. Bob Backlund was nicknamed the All-American Boy. He was an amateur wrestler in North Dakota State University. He won a lot of NCAA championships. He was trained for a professional wrestling career by Vern Gagne and Ray Sharkey. He's no relation to Dr. Thomas Sharkey. And Bob Backlund made his debut in pro wrestling in the mid-70s. He wrestled for AWA and some territories down south and Florida. And he was recommended by Championship Wrestling from Florida's owner Eddie Graham and AWA owner Vern Gagne. They told Vince McMahon Sr., the owner of the WWF, that Bob Backlund would be a good champion to replace Bruno Sammartino, and Pedro Morales as a long-term babyface champion of the WWF. Bruno Sammartino and Pedro Morales were long-term babyface WWF champions because they were like ethnic back heroes, because Bruno represented the Italians and Pedro represented the Puerto Rican community, and they had a big population of Italians and Puerto Ricans in New York and in the northeast section of the WWF. And this was a kind of a change of philosophy for the champions, that Bob Backlund didn't have an ethnic background. I think he was like Swedish or something. But he had the All-American Boy looks, and this was a change of it. Bob Backlund won the WWF Championship on February 20th, 1978. He beat superstar Billy Graham at Madison Square Garden, but Graham's foot was on the rope when the referee counted 1, 2, 3. But this was like poetic justice, because superstar Billy Graham beat Bruno Sammartino for the belt about several months earlier with his feet on the ropes. And for the next 6 years, Bob Backlund was the babyface champion of the WWF, which became the WWF in 1979. He went through all challengers. He had memorable feuds with superstar Billy Graham, Ken Patera, Peter Maivia, Pat Patterson, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Angelo King Kong Mosca, Sergeant Slaughter, Big John Studd, The Masked Superstar, and so many others. There were some interruptions of his title reign that were not acknowledged. He dropped the WWF belt to Antonio Inoki in Japan, November 30th, 1979, but Backlund won the belt back 6 days later, but that title change was never recognized on television. And also, on October 19th, 1981, the referee mistakenly, Bob Backlund pinned Greg the Hammer Valentine, but the referee mistakenly gave the title to the Hammer because he was dazed. It was just held up in the Madison Square Garden area, but Backlund defended the WWF title everywhere else in the territory. By 1982, Vince McMahon Sr. sold the WWF to Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon looked at Bob, said that Bob Backlund's not going to be his champion anymore because the crowd was booing him, saying to boo him and stuff like that. And he wanted, he was going national, Vince McMahon, so he wanted a kind of a superhero champion, and he signed Hulk Hogan from the AWA to be his babyface champion. But they had to get the belt off of Backlund. They were not going to have a face-to-face dropping of a title. So on December 26, 1983, the Iron Sheik had Bob Backlund in the camel clutch, and Bob says he wouldn't have gave up, but Bob Backlund's manager, Arnold Skolin, threw in the towel, and his nearly 6-year reign was over. Babyface managers in wrestling are pointless, just like exotic strippers dancing with their clothes on. Makes no sense. And anyway, after that happened, Bob Backlund basically left the WWF because Vince McMahon asked him to turn heel and feud with Hulk Hogan, and he refused to. And like Bob Backlund dropped out of the WWF, and he made some wrestling appearance in the AWA and some independent promotions through 1985. Then, for 7 years, he kind of retired from professional wrestling. In 1992, at the age of 43, Bob Backlund made a comeback in the WWE. They were promoting him that his goal was to be the WWE champion once again, but for the first 21 months of his comeback, Bob Backlund was just on television, just winning match after match after match. He wasn't in any significant programs, significant feuds, except for being in the 1993 Royal Rumble, where he drew number 2, and he lasted 68 minutes. He was the next to last person thrown out of the Rumble. He was on the verge of drop kicking Yokozuna over the top rope, which would have been amazing, and if he did that, he probably would have won it, but Yokozuna threw him over the top rope. And he also had a match at WrestleMania 9 against Razor Ramon, and Ramon beat him with a small package. But then Bob Backlund sporadically appeared on television into the summer of 1994 when he issued a challenge to Bret the Hitman Hart on an edition of WWE Superstars to a wrestling match, and made the best man win. And they had a wrestling match on Superstars July 30th, 1994, where Bob Backlund and Bret the Hitman had a scientific match for about 15 minutes, and Bob Backlund thought he won the World Championship again with a small package. But the referee only counted 2, and then when he tried to do it again, Bret Hart puts him in a small package, and 1, 2, 3. Bob Backlund was shocked he lost, and they shook hands, Bret and Bob Backlund, and then when Bret offered him to shake his hand again, Bob Backlund slapped him in the face and put him in the crossface particularly, and he was acting crazy, and he wouldn't go into several referees and officials broke him up. Bob Backlund looked at his hands like that, and that was the start of a heel turn. Originally, that heel turn was planned that this was going to be a thing, that it would have a curse of Papa Shango, who left the WWE earlier in 1993. There was rumors he was going to come back as this was a curse for him, but Bob Backlund got the gimmick working up, got him crazed heel over. He started to get a lot of craziness, and he was becoming a top heel. His he was putting the chicken wing on everybody. He first put the crossface chicken wing on a magazine writer on Monday Night Raw and as a demonstration, but he refused to let go. And this was a classic interview that Vince McMahon did. He went for the magazine. He's not even a wrestler. Let him go. Let him go. Let him go. Let him go. And you could see the first mannerisms of Mr. McMahon during that interview. And a few weeks later, Bob Backlund put the cross-face chicken wing on his manager, Arnold Skaaland, during an interview on WWE Superstars, where Arnold Skaaland was saying he flew in the towel because he wanted to save his future, and Bob Backlund was going crazy, and Arnold Skaaland had to apologize and shake his hand, and Bob Backlund refused, and Vince McMahon says, "You ain't gonna shake his hand. He built your career. What's the matter with you?" And then when they were trying to go back, Bob Backlund snaps again, puts on the crossface chicken wing, and Vince McMahon goes nuts, say, let him go, oh damn it. Another mannerisms of Mr. McMahon, and then Bob Backlund goes crazy, putting it on several WWE superstars. Bob Spark Plug Harley, 1, 2, 3 Kid, Duke the Dumpster, Dorsey, Adam Bomb, Lex Luger, and others. And Survivor Series 1994, the main Bob Backlund wrestled Bret the Hitman Hart in a submission match for the WWE Championship. And Bob Backlund and Bret the Hitman Hart had a great scientific match. The British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith was in the Hitman's corner, and Owen Hart, Bret's brother, who he feuded with all of 1994, was in Backlund's corner, and this was a great scientific match until like Bob Backlund had Bret the Hitman out in a crossface chicken wing, and the Bulldog was out because they were running. Bulldog was chasing Owen Hart around the ring, and the Bulldog tripped, and when Owen saw like Bret in the crossface chicken wing, he was crying. He didn't want to throw in the towel. He pleaded with his mother and father, who was sitting at the ringside, Stu and Helen Hart, and they were crying. Owen was crying, but then Helen Hart throws in the towel for Bret, and it was all a setup because Owen Hart laughed afterwards, and Bob Backlund became the new WWE Championship at the age of 45. But Bob Backlund's reign was only short-lived because 3 days later, Big Daddy Goose Diesel beat him at Madison Square Garden in 8 seconds to win the WWE Championship and go on a year-long reign, which that meant business in the WWE went down. But that's another subject for another day. Afterwards, Bob Backlund kind of had a little more of the craziness heel role, but it got eventually faded. He lost a submission match to Bret the Hitman, an I Quit match to Bret the Hitman Hart at WrestleMania 11. He didn't say I quit, but the special guest referee Rowdy Piper said, "Do you quit, Bob?" He nodded his head. He didn't say I quit, but he nodded his head. And then afterwards he says he saw the light. That means that I don't know if he was going to turn good, but that probably was the end of the crazed heel run. And eventually he became a comedy heel, which he, on Monday Night Raw, he was contemplating running for president of the United States, and he actually had some promos about how he's going to do with the educational system and stuff like that. He says there'll be no summer vacations. But afterwards, after that ran its course, Bob Backlund just kind of disappeared from WWE television. I thought that the heel turn that Bob Backlund did in 1994 was one of the best heel turns in the 1990s. It was great because this was kind of in the lean periods of the WWE because of so many talent going to WCW and Vince McMahon's steroid trial and stuff like that. Backlund should have deserved more than a 3-day reign. I would have kept the belt on Backlund to maybe Royal Rumble, having either Big Daddy Cool Diesel beat him, or having Lex Luger beat him, or The Undertaker, but 3-day reign for this, that probably killed it. And I thought it was entertaining and stuff like that. Well, I'll be back later for one of these video blogs, okay? Good afternoon, Facebook friends and YouTube followers.